Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, it's a new Forbidden and Limited list, this time for the TCG, going into effect February 2nd, and yeah, let's take a look at this. Now, generally speaking, the TCG has big ban lists, and they tend to be incredible, mostly due to the fact that the TCG actually knows what's happening, and what to do about problematic cards. So, let's see what's going on. Also, I should say, currently, the best decks in the TCG continue to be Malice and Mitsurugi Yummy, as well as Draco Tail, I believe, are the three decks that are like the number ones. So those are kind of the things that we should be looking for. First and foremost, we have some unlimits. Dark Greffer was at 1. Okay. Collapse Serpents back to 3, sure. Raisins back to 3, Pog Champion. I would imagine this is either to hit... either this is being traded when it comes to Vanquish Soul stuff, or they're switching, like, maybe they banned a Vanquish Soul thing, or they're banning, like, K9 cards, or actually hitting K9 cards. We'll see. That's, interesting, because also recently a lot more people have been playing Vanquish Soul K9 again, so there's that. Wyvern Burster's back to 3, short. Dryden's back to 3, finally. Change of Heart is at 3, okay. Crystron Inclusion is back to 3. That's actually really nice. We were actually literally talking about this yesterday on stream, or 2 days ago on stream, where we were like, why is this even limited? Why did we limit this card? So that's cool. Snatch Steel is back to 3. Okay, sure. Stake Your Soul is also back to 3. So I'm guessing some sort of limitation for the Vanquish Soul half, for the K9 half of the deck is likely to happen. That's most likely what's going to happen. Moving on, new semi-limit, Droll and Lockbird. I don't like this. I think Droll and Lockbird is a good card. I think it's a nice limitation to a lot of powerful decks, and I think it's a good way to answer a lot of problematic cards, or more specifically, a lot of problematic strategies. I think most decks have the ability to play through this rather effectively, and it is a nice stopgap. So I don't know why we're limiting it. I think it's a good card. I understand. No, I don't. Dracotail Malulu at 1. Yeah, this makes sense. This is a very, very good card for Dracotail. So, limiting it still gives access to the card itself, but it lowers the effectiveness of the Dracotail cards in general. Kind of forces them to play additional cards other than just like pure Dracotail. Granted, they were already playing the branded stuff, but there you go. Jokul to 1. Yeah, that makes sense. Jokul is probably the best of the K9 cards, even more so than I would say Izuna, mostly due to the fact that Jokul just puts the 2/5s immediately onto the field, whether your opponent does the thing or not, whereas Izuna kind of requires your opponent to actually do something for you to have the bodies necessary. So I think this card's kind of crazy. Now it basically forces you to search the card as opposed to just drawing it. Very nice. Holly Sue is at 1. Does that matter? Yeah, I guess, because now you have less Earths. That's like the biggest thing, right? Now maybe you play Pantera or something of that nature. I don't think this matters nearly as much as the limitations to Raisin and Stake Your Soul. I guess it matters more than Stake Your Soul, to be fair. But trading a, Holly Sue for Raisin, I think is way better. Yes, you will, again, less likely have the ability to play on the opponent's turn, which is one of the cool things that Vanquish Soul was able to do, because you now can't reveal Holly Sue to, to kind of immediately start playing. That being said, I don't know. I feel like having the consistency of additional Raisin to guarantee that you have a better start, I think is arguably better. I don't know. If this is the only trade-off, I think it's fine. And I think it's a little bit more power to Vanquish Soul, but it's still weaker than it was. But in addition to the canine stuff, I think it's a pretty solid hit. Snatchy to 1. From 3 to 1. Wow. This hurts significantly. But Snatchy, or more specifically Yummy, still has the capability of playing the game. It just means that now if you were to, like, banish Snatchy, like, you activate DD Crow, or you activate, he's a light, right? Yeah, if you activate, like, a Bestial or something like that, you can kind of cut them off entirely of Snatchy, which can really hinder them. That's, I think, the biggest thing. That's kind of interesting. Other than that, I don't really think it matters too much. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Habakiri to 1. Yeah. Honestly, this card should just be banned. I am not a fan of this, or the way that this card specifically works. Actually, I'm lying to you. I think this card's great. I think it's a really cool card. It should just lock you into reptiles. That's it. Like, just errata the card to say you can only summon reptiles the turn you activate this effect. And then you're done. And then it's a great card, and it's really cool, and it allows Mitsurugi to be Mitsurugi, and you can still play Mitsurugi with other things, but you can't play Habakiri, and it doesn't do, you know, your taxes and everything else that you could ever want. So, yeah, obviously Habakiri is an insane card. If you know what Habakiri does, you know how incredibly powerful this card is, and limiting it is a good way to basically get it out of the hands of a bunch of people, or force them to either search the card or something else of that nature. But I think the problem is not what Habakiri does. The problem is the fact that Habakiri is so easily accessible to a bunch of different strategies. If Habakiri is only useful for Mitsurugi decks, or for reptile decks, I think it's fine. I don't think it really does anything. But it's the fact that, oh, I can play it in Yummy, I can play it in Vanquishal, I can play it in Canine, I can play it in Malice, I can play it in anything, right? You just get to do the thing. So, yeah. It's a nice limitation, but should be more. Case for Canine also going to 1. Yeah, I guess this makes sense. Yeah, no, that's fine. Case for K9 is just like the search card for anything, so having access to it is fine. It also means that you basically have to go through Ripper in order to find Case for K9, which means that you do have to play more into your Izana and kind of like playing on the opponent's turn, utilizing the hand traps of the opponent to get more from your K9s. So I don't mind that, sure. Good limitation. Still nerfing kind of all of those Jush decks. I think it's fine. Speaking of which, Ketu is also at 1. Yeah, Ketu's insane. Being able to search and fusion, very powerful. And limiting that in any capacity, very solid. Dragotail, I think, is currently the best deck right now. Well, actually, I think it is Mitsurugi Yummy. But, there you go. I think this same hit happened in the OCG, and Dragotail is still, like, very playable. So, I don't hate that. Finally, please tell me. Okay, to be fair, where are the rest of the barrier statues? Like, okay, Torrent's banned. Great, fantastic. Love to see that. Where are the rest of those barrier statues? Like, we should just be banning all of them, right? Like, clearly they're not what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is meant to be doing right now, and nobody really wants to see any barrier statues. And sure, there are some that you can play around more effectively, right? Like, the dark and the light one, those ones tend to be a lot easier to deal with, simply due to the fact that light and dark are more common. But nobody wants to see any of the barrier statues. No one wants to see the pyro one, or even the dark one, or the light one, or any of them. They're just annoying, right? So I don't know. Where's the rest of them? That being said, good limitation. Good ban. Next up, Whitebinder. Yeah, I've been talking about this. Malice needs to ban Whitebinder in order for it to actually be meaningful. The rest of the hits to Malice don't matter. Malice is just Cyber slop at this point, and the way to take Malice away from Cybers is to ban this card in particular, because this is their access to the trap cards, which is what makes the Malice cards playable and usable. And on top of that, it's the card that actually allows you to generate more advantage by banishing additional names and triggering their effects. So I do think this is very clearly the ban. However, if this is the only ban that the TCG has, I don't think it does enough. I think Malice will still be playable just due to the quality of Cyber's cards that exist. I think you also need some other limitations. And seeing as how there weren't other limitations, they better have banned Red Ransom as well. Or something of that nature. Herald of Arclight, just straight up banned. Sure, I guess. Yeah. It's just kind of a simple negate that a lot of decks have the ability to make. So I get it. I mostly think of this card for, like, ritual purposes. But I guess maybe this is also for ritual purposes. Like, oh, we don't want you to just easily go into Habakiri, you know. We don't want you to search out Habakiri off of, like, normal summon diviner. So maybe that's the purpose behind that. So, sure. Doesn't mean I have to like it, but yeah, sure. Heartbeat's Featherstorm, good riddance. And that's it. That's the whole list. Overall, a good ban list. I still think Malice is going to be a top deck. Or at least part of the top decks. Like it is in Master Duel, even with all of those other limitations. Mostly due to the fact that Malice in the TCG is not nearly as hit. What the hell? Like, this is at 2, this is at 3, this is at 1. This is banned, but this is at 2. This is totally legal. So, like, all of the other cards are totally fine. Oh, I guess. Yeah, because they have the altar. Yeah, that's the thing, is, like, they have more names. The only thing is that this is now banned, and I don't think that's going to be enough, at the very least. Malice is, yeah, Malice is still probably playable. Draco Tail's obviously still playable. Vanquishal is back in a new way, still utilizing the K9 cards, I would imagine, but it is weaker at the very least. But so is everything else. Most notably, K9 Mitsurugi, I think, got hit the hardest. I think the K9 variants, or not K9, did I say K9? I meant Yummy. I think the Yummy variants, Yummy Mitsurugi and the Yummy variants got hit the hardest, losing access to Snatchy and losing access to Herald. I think it matters a lot for those decks. But other than that, I think Mitsurugi might be played. But they don't have King of the Feral Imps. So you can't just, like, search Habakiri. There's very few ways to search Habakiri with anything. So I do think you're more likely to see less Mitsurugi. Draco Tail still playable. Vanquishal still playable. Malice still playable. Yummy probably is still good. But I think is way weaker in terms of its recursion and, like, ability to push through end boards. Because now dealing with the one Snatchy just kind of cuts them off of Snatchy. Which I think is something. That being said, I think there's, I don't know, like, Eneacraft is probably going to be playable now, alongside a bunch of the other newer stuff. So this kind of makes way for other newer decks to be playable and to be at the top now. But that being said, I don't think any of these decks are going to go anywhere. So, yeah, cool. At least we got rid of some problematic cards. So I like that. But that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, like us very much appreciate it. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye.